Yo, welcome back. It's been a while since I've been on YouTube. I don't know. I think I last uploaded like last year at some point, and now I'm finally back, and I'm so happy to be doing this. I think that a lot of it is a lot of things happened, and I think that I'm ready to finally be making content again. So, yeah, welcome back to the show. Um, Really, I think I still want to keep YouTube to still kind of just be this access point in my life where I document a lot of things. And I know I had a podcast last year called, wait, was it last year? Something like that. Billionaire's Therapy, which I just you can still rewatch the episodes. They're on Spotify and they're also on this channel. So you can see I'm kind of like in my room. My little Yoda's back there. And I'm just really excited to kind of be back on the content game. I am rebranding a lot of things, and I think that this documentary style, kind of like sit down style of like me making content again. I want to kind of have it be more raw and kind of just no filter and the things that I'm trying to document in my life, which is particularly at this chapter is just about the business and my job, my career, where I want to go in life. I think at this point, it's just a good time for me to really document a lot of things. So I hope you guys enjoy this kind of content. I also have a close friends kind of like private group chat in a broadcast channel on my Instagram. So if you're coming in from there, welcome. I really want to do this show for you guys. But also, I'm not going to promote this channel a whole lot on my Instagram because I kind of just want the algorithm to kind of push me to the right people. And I don't know. I just feel like it's not for everybody who follows me. So I just had dinner, went to Wendy's. It's a Saturday night, and this is what I'm doing. Except all day I've been working on my website, and it's been really nice. It's almost done. I don't think it'll be done tomorrow. Also, I still need to put in the URL and everything, so that's going to take a few days. But the idea is that that should be good by next weekend, and I'm really excited to start having that out there. So, in the close friends business moves broadcast channel, again, if you're here from there, welcome. I think that particularly in that GM, I share a lot of like my business thoughts and everything. And last week, I kind of made a poll for the group, and I said, what kind of YouTube videos you want me to make, and I kind of had three different options. I think I actually have it. Let me see. So the first three YouTube videos I want to make um, today is about the true opportunity cost of your 20. Obviously, that's probably what the headline is going to be, or the title of this video. Three sections of issues that hold us back from our potential that I've learned, and what is a noble pursuit. I think that's going to be a cool one too. But yeah, just kind of like diving into it. I think a lot of you guys voted in for the true opportunity cost of our 20, and I think that's kind of like what I wanted to talk about today, which is kind of funny because obviously I have like a 9 to 5 full-time job as a marketing specialist at a local company. And I usually don't talk to a lot of people at work. I'm just kind of like by myself. They kind of put me away in this little desk area. But he was right next to me. So I just went over and, talked to him for a little bit, wished him happy birthday. And, I asked him, I was like, dude, so, I usually don't want to ask this to people, but, how old are you turning today? And he looked at me and said, yeah, man, I'm 51 today. I was like, 51? Damn. Like, I really meant this when I said this, but I said, you generally don't look like it. I feel like you look like you're late 30s, early 40s. Hopefully I look that good when I'm 51. And, he got a good laugh out of that. And then a lot of the times when I'm talking to people on their birthdays, I usually just ask them one thing, whether they're older or not or younger than me. I always ask them the same question, what is kind of like an advice you have for a 27-year-old? That's how old I am now. And, you get so many cool like advice from people that I think really help me shape the world I'm in and kind of just like grab different perspectives from people. I think it's a good way to kind of just like connect. And so yeah, I asked him, I was like, do you have any advice for a 27-year-old? And he said, just try to live your life. At this point, you're probably gonna have a lot of fun, but also, focusing on your career. But the biggest thing that he kind of like pointed out to me was, be mindful about when you want to think about having children, because he said that he had his children kind of like later in life. I think he said like early 40s, and he said that there was kind of like a chance to where like if he had them younger, that he would be able to do more physical activities with them, like sports or something like that, which was really an eye opener for me because I never really kind of gave that a lot of thought. And we just had a decent conversation about like what I'm trying to do in my life and like my past, and like it was really good. It was really good, like 5 to 10 minutes of my day, and it really led me to reflect kind of like where I'm at this point in my life. And you know I think that's kind of like why I wanted to pick up this series again of like documenting the journey, because I do want to look back in particular to different chapters of my life and kind of realize like, what am I learning? How am I feeling? The different issues that I'm having maybe. Um, so it led me to reflect a lot of that. And at this point currently, like I said, it's August 24th, 2024. It's a Saturday night. It's like 10 o'clock or something like that. I'm 27. I'm working as a full-time marketing specialist for a local company. There's still a lot of things I want to accomplish in my life. In particular, my side project called Six Rings Media, which was an advertising agency I started in college, and I just haven't like really given up on it. Even though last year we kind of had a really really rough year, I lost a whole lot of things with the business, damn near almost all of it, and I had to really take a step back for a few months, almost close to a year. It was really rough for me because I was having to navigate kind of like the adult life and kind of like being a full time salaried employee. That was kind of like new for me. And it wasn't rough in terms of like my mental health. It was just rough for me because I have had to kind of build a new character, kind of build a new routine, kind of build a new mindset for how to get through most of my days and accomplish the projects at work, stuff like that. I really wasn't working on, Six Rings Media or anything like that. So that was particularly new for me to handle my mid to late 20s. Then yeah, like earlier this summer, I recently picked up the mantle again, and I have a lot of ideas for how I wanted to run the agency and build it from the ground up. I think I've narrowed them down to two or three ideas that I can kind of actually execute on after hours, after work, which is important for me because obviously I work 8 to 5 basically, and in the mornings I wake up at 6 or 5:45 and get to the gym because my gym's walkable distance now. So I just walk to my gym, get a good workout in before work, and I usually feel great. So it leads me after work to kind of like work on the business usually Monday through Thursday, and then Saturday all day. And then those are usually the times where I'm plugging away at the things I want to work on and accomplish. So yeah, that's kind of like where I'm at right now in terms of my business, my work life. And now that like the summer's kind of like winding down, I've had a lot of time to reflect on things. I also have, forgot to mention, I also have a stream. My friends and I started streaming called Main Feed Stream. Essentially, we just like kind of talk about culture, life in general, and yeah, it's just overall just a fun time. I think it's a cool project for me to work on because I've always wanted to be in content, and streaming is kind of like a new thing for me. But honestly, all the things that I've learned when I try to be a YouTuber, when I tried to do my own podcast, when I tried to, run other people's podcasts, like I've learned so much in terms of content distribution, editing, stuff like that, production, that I'm taking all of that into account for main feed and trying to grow that as well. So yeah, I mean, my plate's definitely full. I think that for a 27-year-old, um, I'm starting to learn to live by the weeks. I think that's really important to navigate. I plan out usually like 2 weeks ahead, and I think a lot of people will realize like you actually do have a lot of time. It's just a matter of like time allocation is really important if you're trying to manage like different things in your life. And I think that I have two main projects that I'm working on outside of work. So it really leaves a small amount of time for everything else. It has to make sense, right? So like I definitely think that this chapter I'm having to value my time a lot because I know that I could be at home working on the business, or I could be working on the stream, or I could be working on personal branding. So I think I just have to be a little bit more mindful these days. I think that's kind of like the biggest thing. So, title of this video is, what are the true opportunity costs of our 20s? Something that I've been reflecting about more recently in the past handful of weeks, just because I'm kind of like, ever since I've turned 27, I've been kind of getting into that mode of like, what's my life going to end up being, or what do I want to work on? What do I want to be known for? I've been reflecting a lot on these things. And I think that if we really want to narrow it down, I think opportunity cost is, if we want to put a definition on it, I think people probably have like different definitions for it. But like the general thesis is like to define opportunity costs: the loss of potential gain from other alternatives when one option is chosen, right? And I think that that's becoming especially apparent to me, like being in the last years of my 20s. Not that I think anything significant is going to happen when I turn 30 or whatever. Frankly, I'm ready for, whatever happens. Do think that I'm clearly making a choice for my life, and at this chapter, at least for the next 5 to 6 years, of building two things that could potentially have outsized returns in the future. And it's kind of hard because we are, at least I am, learning how to be more patient with kind of like what comes back in terms of like ROI, which is something that I never learned in my earlier years when I was building Six Rings Media, because I've always been taught that like you got a gun for, getting your first client, getting cash flow going, which is still very mildly important to me at this point. But I think what's also more important to me at this point with an agency is that like I'm building the foundational skills to run it correctly this time, so that it has potential to not only run fast but like run efficiently, especially if this is something I want to do for the rest of my life, right? Like that's something that a lot of people don't really put into account, that like, yeah, you can have an agency, but at one point the newspaper stand, like that used to be an agency where they can distribute information all throughout the city, all throughout the town. And then like, that's like a decreasing value over time. And also even like radio, I recently had an experience with a radio agency in Kansas City, and they're talking about like how people aren't driving the same throughout their days, in the morning and at, after work. So their listeners are like dropping by the numbers. And I'm like, bro, maybe it's because people are like tuning into their podcasts or like Spotify. If there's something to that about running things as efficiently as possible for the long run and not just like for the now. So that includes me building up my skills though, right? So I do think that there's like three examples of decisions that people make at this particular chapter of their lives. I think one, obviously, which is like what I'm making, is like career choice and kind of just like furthering where they're at financially. I think the second thing that they do is like personal development. That could come into terms of like, being as physically fit as possible, which I kind of have like a hint of this as well. And like where I'm at, just because like I am working out, I'm trying to eat a little bit better these days. So there's a hint of that in there. And then I think the third choice is like relationships, right? Like they're partnering up and finding a potential mate for the long run. I'm having children at this point. So yeah, I think those are just different. If we had to make a triangle, like career, personal development, relationships, I feel like at some point, like you're gonna have to narrow in on one of the three, because we only have so much time throughout the weeks, the months. There's only so much that we can accomplish. And I in particular want to be great at what I do. So I think that like that's why I'm like buckling down on like developing skill sets that are valuable in the long run. I used to think like Facebook ads was like a valuable skill, which it is. And I've run up a big number in the past 5 or 6 years. I've been running ads, but like being an operator for a business, being able to operate an actual business itself and like grow it and like maintain it for years to come, to the bad years and the good years. Sales, if you can't sell your shit, then like no one in particular is going to just come to your door, knock on your door and be like, yeah, I want this. Especially if you have a kind of like a business that's like not a necessity. So, if you're not in the food or gas or housing business, then like you're basically shit out of luck, because you're having to compete with the marketplace. And that's like, I feel like you need to make a career choice that like you're going to be good at what you do, have the skill set required to move forward. And that is like an actual choice you got to make. Like You can't just passively learn things because you read a book or watched a YouTube video, or on your lunches you're like on Skillshare and like taking courses. Like, you can't just passively do it. You have to actually do it. You have to actually exert time and energy and money to developing and cultivating your career skill sets to like make sure you're valuable in the marketplace. Similarly, you could say the same thing with the two other choices, like personal development. Like, you're gonna have to take care of yourself. You're gonna have to, be a scholar. You're gonna have to enjoy life. You're gonna have to go travel and be well read and like enjoy the human experience as much as you can. Like, that's also a skill set within itself, right? Like, if you want to go into your 30s being well read, well traveled, a lot of experiences, a lot of memories, you're gonna have to exert time, money, energy into either of these choices. So, with that being said, I also want to, but also, at this point, I feel like a lot of people say something along the lines of like, I've especially heard it. I probably hear it more than anybody, which is that like, this is the time in your life to kind of just enjoy things, to kind of just like let things come as they are. And, Gary Vee talks about it a lot where like, I could fuck up the next 6 years of my life and I'll still be 33, right? Like, that's cool to kind of think that way. But at the same time, like, I feel like, and I'm speaking for myself, right? I made a choice for my career to build that skill set. I actually have to brute force my way into being an entrepreneur. I have to wake up and like force myself into like a sales situation or writing the emails or building the website for fucking 8 hours of the day. Like, that has to be forced into the universe. You can't just, like I said, you can't just passively do that. And I think that the mindset that like, oh, your whole 20s, you're supposed to enjoy life and like do this and this. Like, I think that that's kind of like misleading in a way, because I feel like this kind of mindset will kind of lead you to procrastinate on your actual goals and like the actual things that make you feel better about yourself. Either that, or it can lead you to kind of like a lack of direction when you get into your 30s or just in life in general. I mean, there's probably like 40-year-olds who never really figured out like what they were supposed to do or like how to feel fulfilled in like life in general. I'm not saying I know what like the general idea would be to find direction, but I know what's worked for me. And I know, like, for me, all the jobs I've had, all I've ever thought about while I'm at those jobs is running my own business. And so, like, I don't want to have that lack of direction. And I definitely, especially, don't want to procrastinate and wait until I'm late 40s to kind of figure out, like, oh, this is how I reach my fullest potential of being in business. Like, I can do that now. I can pay the ignorance debt now. I can pay the educational debt now. Like, I can learn now and actually execute in real time how to run a business and maintain it. And I'm willing to do that because, honestly, like, I'm still enjoying life. Like, there's weekends, not all the time, maybe like once every 3 weeks or every 4 weeks. Like, I'm going out and doing stuff. Taking a break is especially important for me. I just went to LA for like 4 days, like about a month ago. So I still learn how to take breaks. It's just not the actual focus and the choice that I made this chapter of my life. So, but also with that being said, I don't know if like I'm kind of like an exception for a lot of things, but like I made that decision early on in my life where I kind of just like thought to myself, I think I was right when the year I turned 21, that New Year's Eve, I kind of just thought to myself, like, yeah, like this is really what I want to do. And I want to figure out, how to break 10K per month in profit with an online business. Like, I feel like I can figure that out, and I'm not too far away from it. Like, in college I got pretty close. I haven't gotten that close since then, but like I've had pretty stable months where I was making a decent income with my online business and like my agency, but nowhere near like where I want to be. But I made that decision like a long time ago, about 4 years ago now, 5 years ago, where I was just not going to quit until I get there. And like having to maintain that kind of focus for years on at a time, it just kind of made me who I am today, honestly. Like, there's no other way to say it. Like, it's just who I am now. And I'm happy for that, honestly. Like, really happy with building the business. I'm happy to do it every weekend if I can. But like, truthfully, like, why does that matter, right? Like, you might be asking yourself like, okay, why are you yapping on about like, these decisions that we got to make at this chapter of our lives? And I think for me, it matters because I'm well aware of like what I am sacrificing, right? Like I am sacrificing being a young parent or like being married young or like there's significant life events that I've missed out on with my close friends and like family members because that I am working on something I value for the long term. And I think that's important to be aware of, especially um, for other people. I think like for me, like it's important because like I have a note in my notes app. Basically, it's just a list of things I've sacrificed in the past year and a half, things that I couldn't do, things, events that I couldn't attend, sporting events that I couldn't go to, that I was invited to, but I can't because I'm working on client lists. I'm looking at the marketplace for where my client is at in the industry, how they compare, how they rank. Like I've sacrificed so much, and I think that like knowing like what you're sacrificing is something that could affect how you live out your 30s. Like I think that's super important to be mindful of because with the small amount of time that we have left, especially like when you're like around where I'm at, 27, 28, like there's only so much left of life that like I feel like of the chapter, your 20s in general, that you can actually do something with before you can set yourself up for your 30s. And I think that there's a lot of lessons to be learned, like in the grand scheme of things. It's just being able to look at your life in like decades as chapters. Like, your teens, you're learning a lot about actually not really. I was playing sports, didn't learn a lot about shit. I mean, I learned how to compete. I learned how to be tough minded, mentally tough. I learned how to kind of like fight your way for a spot. Like you got to learn how to do that. You got to learn that education's important. And then like in my 20s, like you just kind of have to narrow down at least the late middle to late 20s. You kind of just have to narrow down a few things to where you can actually excel at one of those three things I just mentioned earlier in the video. Whether it's your career, whether it's your personal development and like happiness, or if you're optimizing to be in a relationship at some point, like that's probably something you got to think about, right? Like, yeah. And then things change like all throughout your life, like things change. But being able to see things in the grand scheme of things, I think really helps you understand like, oh, this is what I should be doing now so that I can set myself up for my 30s, whatever. But with that being said, like, I feel like now I got to ask myself, like, what am I working towards specifically? So, realistically speaking, I do have a couple more years left until I can really think about like my 30s. But for the most part, I do want to be a little bit more financially secure. Not to say that I'm not now, but I hate the fact that I only really do have one source of income right now. But that's not to say like it's a bad thing. It's actually pretty good. At least I think it's decent for where I want to be. And in comparison to where I think my potential is at, I definitely don't think it's anywhere close. And I think that I want to at least swing the bet on creating another source of income for myself by myself. I think that's going to be a cool goal to achieve by the time that I can talk about it, right? Like that's something that I really want to accomplish. And I think if I can figure out how to have two or three or four like sources of income that are producing at a high rate, I think especially if the two or three or four other incomes have potentially, no limit to it, and it's just a matter of input versus outputs. I think that's something that's super exciting to think about because if you could accomplish that and you put all your energy towards that, then 2 or 3 or 4 years down the road, something's going to happen. Like there's just no way it doesn't. Like it's just a matter of iteration at that point. Like for me, like I said, if I'm working towards two or three sources of income by the time I'm 30, it's just a matter of like, all right, I'm putting the pieces in place now so that I can make iterations down the road, whether it's weekly, whether it's monthly, to achieve that desired goal by the time I'm 30. So like 3 years from now. And I don't necessarily think that's like a dumb thing to think about. I think that like with the way the economy is, with the way how a lot of things are in terms of like losing a job, losing this, and this, like light bills, like there's so many things that could happen potentially for you. Thank God I don't have a family yet, but like there's so many things that could happen that if you had different sources of income, you're kind of just protecting cash flow at this point. So I'm really kind of like early into it right now because I've had to start over again, but I am happy about the potential for the projects I'm working on, and I'm willing to make my bet now that at some point, like something is going to happen as long as I keep chipping away at it. And, my philosophy is kind of like, day by day, you just want to be 1% better, 1% closer to the goal. Like if you can think that way for an extended period of time, like something's going to happen, I think. Right. So that's what I am working on. So if you're watching at this point, I really just want you guys to think about two things, right? I've yapped on for about 30 minutes now, but the two main things I'd like for you guys to walk away with this video is kind of just think like, what are you actually willing to sacrifice now to achieve your goals before you're 30? And like really think about that, like really spend some time, have some conversations about it, the sacrifices that you're making to kind of just like set that foundational tone, going into your 30s. And for some of you, it's just probably just having fun, and it's fine. And I don't know why you're watching this video, because I've optimized my close friends and my YouTube channel to be people who are actually trying to build something, founders, business owners, stuff like that. But if you're just in the mood to have fun for the next 4 or 5 years of your life, then like that's perfect. Go into your 30s, be happy. Be well experienced. People like me optimizing for financial success, I think it's going to be a little bit more of a difficult conversation to have. Different conversation as well. So yeah, that's the first question: is what are you willing to sacrifice now to achieve your goals before you're 30? The second question is, are you making the choices today that your future self will thank you for? That's really important to think about. Like, are you actually living your life day to day? And you can look at yourself in the past 30 days, or 3 months. Like, did I make the choices today that I'd be happy about, when I turn 30? And if the answer is no, then you probably got some self-reflection to do. And I'm not perfect. I mean, this past week, I only went to the gym like 3 times. And I'm trying to go like 5 times a week, 6 times a week. And I slept in a whole bunch this week. Not perfect either. But if I could just have more good days than bad days, I think I'll be all right. So yeah, I'd like to end this video by just kind of saying that, like, if you truly believe in your 20s, to be a foundational chapter of your life, like, you should just try to make these years count, because I am. Like, I want to make my years count. And if that means I got to sacrifice a lot of things, then oh well. It's just a cost to move forward. It's the cost to the next level. There's no way getting around that, honestly. There's nothing passive about this life at all. So thank you guys for listening to me. Hopefully it wasn't too bad. I am currently reading a couple books right now. I'm rereading Deep Work by Cal Newport. And I'm also reading, hold on, let me see. I just got this new book yesterday. When You're Ready, This Is How You Heal, by Brianna Wiest. It's just a collection of essays that she wrote. I thought it was really good. And taking care of my mental health while I'm building the business. So, okay. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you want to join my close friends, follow me on Instagram, DM me CF, and I'll get you in there. Okay. Thanks for watching.